I'm leaving you and moving to Palm Springs with my 25-year-old boyfriend, and I am taking all our money with me. That was a text that lit up my phone at 3 a.m. local time in the Persian Gulf, just after I had finished a 14-hour shift on the rig. My name is Miles Harrington. I am 52 years old, and I have spent the last 27 years working oil platforms across the world. My hands were still greasy, my body heavy with exhaustion, when I opened a message from Krista, my wife of 18 years. I stared at my phone, heart pounding in my chest, when another message appeared, a screenshot of our joint account balance, showing a cold, empty 02, where $142,000 should have been. She had even added a little kiss emoji at the end, as if this betrayal was some kind of joke. I did not throw my phone. I did not punch the wall. I just sat there in my cramped bunk, shoulder to shoulder with two other riggers snoring softly in their sleep, and typed back, "Sure, good luck." Then I shut the phone off, stripped off my dirty coveralls, and stepped into the tiny steel shower stall, letting the hot water pound against my skin until it scalded away the numbness. The next morning, the guys noticed something was different. I skipped breakfast, skipped the jokes we usually share before heading out. Jackson, my second in command, kept shooting me quick glances during safety checks, like he was waiting for me to crack. But he knew better than to ask. Out here, 16 men depended on me to keep this floating city of steel alive and running, and personal problems had no place on the deck. At lunch, I gave in and opened my email, hoping maybe for an explanation. Instead, I found divorce papers already filed, accusing me of abandoning the marriage because I worked overseas too much. She had hired a slick lawyer named Bradley, the type who specialized in bleeding high-income workers dry. They were demanding spousal support, painting me as some cold, absentee husband, while she smugly wrote that her emotional support partner was already living in our house in Odessa. I shut the laptop so hard the screen rattled and shoved it aside. I could not let the crew see me unravel. That night, under the dim yellow light in my quarters, I wrote not to Krista, but to my cousin Brendan, an accountant in Houston. Just 3 words. Time to activate Protocol Winter. It was a phrase we had coined years back, and he knew exactly what it meant. His reply came in 3 minutes. Already on it. Do not respond to anything until you are stateside. I still had 2 weeks left on my rotation. 2 endless weeks of sweating through 12-hour shifts in 110-degree heat, while my life collapsed on the other side of the world. The men would have understood if I asked for emergency leave, but what would that solve? Better to finish the job and take the paycheck. That night, the rig supervisor, Vincent, stopped by my quarters. He leaned on the doorway, eyes steady. "Everything stable?" he asked, and I knew he was not just talking about the drilling operation. "Everything's under control," I said, and he nodded, accepting it without pressing further. Control. Something Krista would never know I still had. I thought back to when we first met 19 years ago at my buddy's fishing supply store in Odessa. She was 31, quick-witted, teasing customers who had no clue how to bait a hook, and I was 33, already a decade into the rigs, helping stock shelves between contracts. We married within a year. It felt fast, but it made sense. I had my house paid off from an early investment, a steady career, and she said she admired my discipline, my focus. I admired her spark, the way she could talk to anyone and make them laugh. The work schedule was tough, 2 months on, 1 off, but the pay was more than good. 6 months of my wages equaled 3 years of what most men back home earned. We thought it was worth the sacrifice. She would manage the home front. I would build our future. But around year 12, the cracks started showing. Complaints about missed birthdays, about my constant travel, about how her friends' husbands were always there for dinners and vacations. When I turned 47, she stopped asking when I would be home, stopped sending little photos from her days. Our video calls grew shorter, colder. Last Christmas, I came home to find the entire house redecorated. New furniture, new colors, a place that no longer felt like mine. She just said she needed a change, and I had not asked what kind. 2 months ago, I saw transfers from our joint account to one I did not recognize. She claimed it was house repairs. I drove by before this rotation. No sign of repairs, but a black Audi sat in the driveway. 4 weeks ago, she stopped answering my calls. Sent vague texts about being busy with a project. I told myself to trust her. 18 years of marriage had to mean something. But then, 3 days ago, our neighbor Harold texted me a photo of a moving truck outside our house. "Thought you should know," was all he wrote. I did not reply. Sometimes silence says more than anger ever could. The day after her text, Brendan called me on the satellite phone. His voice was grim. "She's been planning this for at least 14 months, he said. Small transfers at first, then larger. Total, $214,000 moved. Not just the $142,000 you saw." My head spun. That was far more than what sat in our joint savings. "She changed your life insurance beneficiary 6 months ago," he added. "Took out a $40,000 line of credit against the house. Forged your signature." The rig's generators hummed beneath me as I sat frozen. 18 years together, and she had been dismantling me piece by piece. "The guy?" I asked finally. "Devin Forrester," Brendan said. 25. Former personal trainer. No steady job. 3 past relationships with older women, all ending under 2 years. He did not need to explain further. Then came the final blow. 2 one-way tickets to Palm Springs, booked for 3 days from now. She had not just left me. She was trying to vanish. I sat in the dark that night, letting memories rearrange themselves into something uglier, sharper. The late-night calls she took outside, the sudden obsession with fitness, the constant complaint about money despite our savings. The deepest cut was not the betrayal, but the calculation, the patience with which she had been erasing me. Something inside me hardened. I opened my hidden laptop, the one only Brendan and I knew about, and logged into Winter Holdings, the company we had set up 8 years earlier to protect my earnings. The balance, $1.6 million. Every dollar declared, every loophole sealed. Safe. Secure. I sent one email to my lawyer. Proceed with Operation Cold Return. Then I closed the laptop, walked to the mess hall, and poured myself a strong coffee. For the first time in days, I felt hunger gnaw at me again. When I finally landed in Houston, Brendan was waiting at the airport with a burner phone and a folder. "She's been calling your regular number nonstop," he said. "The bank froze her transfers. Standard checks on unusual activity. They want you in person to verify. She has no idea you are back." As we walked his car, he showed me his tablet. Krista's texts with D. I skimmed them. Plans for their new life. Jokes about me working overseas while they spent my money. Even details about the house they had put a deposit on in Palm Springs. But one exchange from just 2 days ago made me stop cold. Krista's messages played out on the screen like a script for betrayal. "Bank froze the money. Need Miles to verify in person. What do we do?" His reply came cold and calculated. "He's still on the rig for 10 more days. Tell him there's an emergency with your mom. Get him to authorize you to handle it. You're still his wife." She answered with hesitation. "He's not answering my calls." And then came his curt instruction. "Try harder. We need that money before the house closing next week, or we need to look at Plan B." Her next message carried fear. "I'm not comfortable with Plan B." But his response chilled me to the bone. "It's just insurance money. He works a dangerous job for a reason. People have accidents all the time." I handed the tablet back to Brendan. My fingers steadied on my veins felt like ice. "These are admissible?" I asked, my voice tight. Brendan nodded, his face grim. "They're from the cloud backup of her phone. She used your Apple account credentials to set up her new device last year. Never changed the password. Everything syncs straight to your cloud storage." The thought that her own arrogance had preserved the evidence twisted like irony. We drove directly to Thomas's office, and the lawyer already had a war chest prepared. Divorce papers, a criminal complaint for the forged home equity loan, and an emergency motion to freeze all assets. But Thomas leaned forward, his expression serious. "There's a complication," he said. "She filed a domestic violence claim against you yesterday. Says she left because of emotional abuse and financial control. Claims she was afraid for her safety." My jaw clenched as I snapped back. "That's absurd. I've been 6,000 miles away for 7 weeks straight." Thomas shook his head. "Doesn't matter. It's a tactic. Judges hear domestic violence, and sympathy tilts her way. Her lawyer is already pushing for an emergency hearing tomorrow to secure a restraining order and exclusive use of your house. She wants you barred while her boyfriend moves in. Rage flared, but I forced myself to stay calm. And alone, I asked. Thomas's eyes darkened. Already gone. She transferred to an LLC registered to Devin Forrester 3 days after she received it. I drew in a slow breath, forcing my mind to sharpen. Then we counterfile immediately. Fraud, forgery, alienation of affection, criminal conspiracy based on those texts. We request an emergency freeze on every account tied to her in that LLC. Thomas slid a document across the desk. We also file this, a motion to dismiss her domestic violence claim for perjury. Evidence is airtight. Your company security badge tracks you on the platform for 7 consecutive weeks. Passport stamps confirm it. Phone records show every call between you two this past year. Nothing suggesting threats or abuse. Relief rippled through me. Not relief of victory, but of having solid ground under my boots again. I signed where he indicated, each stroke of my pen feeling like a nail in the coffin of her lies. One more thing, Thomas added. When she's served, you need to act surprised. She can't know you're back. As far as she knows, you're still at sea. I nodded. I can do that. As I stepped out of his office, my phone buzzed with a message from Krista on my regular number. Please call me. It's an emergency. I need you. I did not respond. The trap was set, and this time it was not hers. That night I stayed at Brendan's house, and for the first time in weeks, I slept soundly. In the morning, with coffee warm in my hands, I logged into the remote security feed for our Odessa home, a system I had installed years ago and quietly maintained. The screen flickered to life, showing a young man sprawled by my pool, sipping whiskey from my collection, wearing my old college sweatshirt like he owned it. His feet were propped on the outdoor furniture I had built with my own hands, and he laughed into my phone as if mocking me from a distance. Moments later, Krista appeared in frame, pacing back and forth, her body tense, movements jerky with nerves. I could not hear the audio, but I did not need to. Her posture said enough. Things were unraveling. Brendan walked in and set down fresh coffee, his face pale. You need to see this, he said, flipping open his laptop. He had been digging deeper into Devin's past all night, and what he found shifted the ground beneath us. He's done this before, 3 times. He turned the screen toward me, and I stared at article after article, court filings, and social media fragments. Each story followed the same pattern. Devin meets a married woman with financial stability. The relationship sparks. She leaves her husband, drains whatever money she can, and within 18 months Devin disappears with it all. The women were left financially broken, some still paying off mountains of debt. Brendan's voice dropped lower. There's more. He was a person of interest once, the death of his second girlfriend's ex-husband. A suspicious car accident on a road the man had driven safely for 20 years. No charges filed, but the timing, 6 weeks after their divorce papers were signed. The air between us thickened as the implication hung heavy. Just then my phone buzzed again. Krista's name lit up the screen. Her call coming through my regular number, desperate, insistent, a plea I no longer had any intention of answering. I let it go to voicemail. You should hear this, Brendan said, placing his phone on speaker. A familiar voice filled the air, trembling and laced with what sounded like tears. Miles, please. I need you to call the bank. There's been a misunderstanding with our account. I was just moving money to a safer investment like we talked about, but the bank froze everything. I cannot access any funds. Please call them and tell them it is okay. I am really scared. Her tone was fragile, almost desperate, but her words struck like a blade. We had never discussed such a thing, and her performance, though convincing, rang hollow to me now. 2 weeks earlier I might have believed her, but not today. She is desperate. Thomas remarked when we met him for lunch. The house closing in Palm Springs is in 5 days. They need that money. His calm delivery made the betrayal sting even deeper. What is our next move? I asked, already bracing myself for the answer. The emergency hearing is this afternoon, Thomas explained. Judge Winters is presiding. She has zero tolerance for false domestic violence claims. We have your documented alibi ready and the bank funds. We filed to have them returned exclusively to you. But there is something else. He slid a folder across the table. My stomach tightened as I opened it. Inside were photographs, grainy but unmistakable, of my furniture, family heirlooms, and memories being loaded into a moving truck. Your neighbor Harold sent these to my office this morning. Thomas continued. They're clearing out the house, planning to disappear whether they get the bank money or not. I closed the folder, the edges biting into my palms, then handed it back. Change of plans. Both men looked at me sharply. I want to go home. Thomas started to object, but I cut him off, not to confront them, to watch. From Harold's place. I want to see this with my own eyes. I want to be there when they are served, not hiding behind legal papers. I want Krista to see my face when her world collapses. A silence lingered before Thomas nodded slowly. I will arrange it. As we stepped out of the restaurant, my burner phone buzzed. It was a text from Harold. They are packing your grandfather's desk now, the one you restored. Thought you want to know. My chest burned. Some thefts go beyond money. Some betrayals cut deeper than lies. This had just become personal in a way I had not imagined. The 6-hour drive to Odessa gave me more than enough time to think. Thomas arranged for the sheriff to serve papers at 9 in the morning. Brendan set up surveillance equipment at Harold's house across the street, where I would spend the night. Everything was ready. When I arrived just after midnight, Harold met me at the door with a firm, wordless handshake. Years on the rigs had weathered his hands, and no explanations were needed between us. She has no idea you are watching? I asked quietly. None, he replied. They have been busy packing all day, loading the good stuff, leaving scraps behind. 2 moving trucks already came and went. Bigger one is due tomorrow morning. He gestured to the window, which framed a clear view of my driveway. My heart tightened at the thought of strangers hauling away pieces of my life. Anyone else been by? I asked. A woman with a clipboard yesterday. Looked like a realtor. Took pictures of the place. I froze. They are selling the house. Harold nodded grimly. I called Thomas immediately, and he promised to check property records first thing. At 3 a.m., restless and unable to sleep, I sat at Harold's kitchen table under the dim yellow glow of the lamp, reviewing every document Brendan had prepared. Bank records showing Krista's systematic draining of our accounts. Phone records charting hours of calls with Devon stretching back over a year. Credit card bills filled with hotel charges in our own town on days she swore she was visiting her sister. The evidence told the story clearly. This was not a mistake, not a moment of weakness. It was a calculated dismantling of everything we had built. By sunrise, Thomas texted with confirmation. Krista had listed our home 2 days earlier, forged my signature, and priced it at 30% below market value for a quick sale. At 8:30 a.m., I watched from Harold's window as Krista and Devon carried out the last small valuables. My grandmother's silver frames, my father's antique watch. At 8:45, a large moving truck arrived. At 8:55, an unmarked car blocked it in. 2 sheriff's deputies stepped out, accompanied by a woman in a tailor business suit. Thomas had sent a court officer. My pulse hammered as I whispered, "It is time." I crossed the street slowly, just as the deputies approached my door. Krista opened it, her irritation collapsing into confusion as the officers identified themselves. "Mrs. Harrington, we have paperwork to serve you and the gentleman present." I stayed at the edge of the driveway, just out of sight, until Devon joined her, arms wrapped around her waist. That was my moment. I stepped into view. The shock on Krista's face hardened into fear, then flickered into cold calculation. Devon simply looked baffled. "Miles," she whispered, "you were supposed to be on the rig." "Surprise," I murmured, nodding at the deputies. Papers were handed over. Restraining orders, asset freezes, criminal complaints, nullification of the home listing, and divorce filings citing fraud and conspiracy. "You cannot do this," Devon barked, puffing his chest. "She is afraid of you." Hard to abuse someone from 6,000 miles away. I cut in, my voice low but steady. Judge Winters dismissed your claim this morning. She also took interest in your text messages about my insurance policy. His bravado dissolved instantly. Krista stepped forward, tears streaming. Miles, this is a misunderstanding. I was only saving our documents. I finished coldly. Protecting our assets by emptying our home? Planning our future by forging my name? Her silence was louder than her tears. The court officer gave them 30 minutes to collect personal items only. As they shuffled inside under supervision, Krista's voice called after me. Where are you going? I did not look back. Home, I said. 3 weeks later, the hearing confirmed everything. Devin was gone, vanished 2 days after being served, leaving Krista abandoned with empty promises. The judge examined the evidence in detail. The forged documents, the drained accounts, the text messages. When she read the discussion of insurance fraud, she looked directly at Krista and warned her of the criminal penalties. Krista stammered excuses, but the judge silenced her swiftly. Her ruling was decisive. All assets returned to me, sole ownership of the house, no spousal support, and referral of criminal charges to the district attorney. Walking out of court, Krista tried to reach me, but I did not slow down. Some victories require no words. 6 months later, I stood on the porch of my cabin in the Montana mountains. 40 acres of pine and meadow I had purchased years ago as a hidden retirement plan, land Krista never knew existed. The air was sharp and clean, carrying only the whisper of wind through the trees. Krista was on probation in Tulsa, working retail, while Devin had already sunk his teeth into another woman in Arizona. I had retired from the oil company after 27 years, finally free. Harold still called with updates from Odessa. I sold a house there, too many shadows lingering in its walls. The last of my heirlooms were shipped here where they belonged. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the peaks, I received final paperwork from Brendan dissolving Winterlight Holdings. A chapter had ended. I poured a glass of bourbon and settled onto the porch swing I had built by hand, the boards creaking softly beneath me. For the first time in years, no one expected anything of me. No crew waiting on orders. No wife spinning lies. Just me, the mountains, and the quiet. My phone rang. Another company offering consulting work. Good pay, minimal travel. I will think about it, I said, and meant it. But not tonight. Tonight was mine and mine alone. The peace I had earned had finally arrived, and I intended to savor every second of it.